Today's video is going to be an exciting one because I played a Grandmaster in a classical over-the-board game. Now this was in a simultaneous, so I played with 30 other people and the Grandmaster was rated over 2,300. Now I've only played chess for just over a year and I'm only rated 1,500. This Grandmaster had a peak rating of over 2,500, so over 1,000 points higher than I am. This is going to be an interesting video. Stay right till the end because it is a very interesting video. Let's get into it. So right before the game started, I had a look around and saw everyone else setting up their boards, and everyone had chosen to play as white because the Grandmaster let anyone pick their colour. So I decided at the last moment to flip the board around and play as black, just simply because everyone else was white. That's the only reason. So let's jump into it. He opened with d4. Now I was quite happy with this, so I played knight f6 and then he played knight f3. Now I actually was already out of preparation. I'm not a very good chess player. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I had a bit of think and then I played just my normal g6. He then just came over and immediately played c4. This was already a bit of a weird structure for me, so I played bishop g7, trying to stay. Now you can see the computer is saying these are all book moves, but I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't know this really that well. It's quite common to have this sort of structure where you have, oops daisy, so you have c4, d4 and then e4. But you know, I was sort of just playing on intuition a little already. So yeah, he played knight c3, I castled, and then he played, this was something quite surprising, he played g3. The computer says this is now dead equal. So I then decided to play, this is apparently an inaccuracy, I played d6. Just simply because I thought he was going to play e4 and then he was trying to push to e5. This is just a sort of precautionary move. Now, I also like opening up my bishop, so I can do something along this diagonal later on, try and get my knight out, that sort of thing. So he played bishop g2, I played knight d7. Now this was apparently a good move, or a book move. I actually didn't really think that much of it because I was just going to try and play e5 myself before he could go e4, e5. So he decided to castle, and then I played this move, which was, at the time I thought this was completely wrong, c6. Now this is just because I also thought he could push this, and you know, it's just a preventative move. Apparently the computer thinks it's absolutely fine, this is all book moves. He then played e4, which I'd been expecting for a while. I played e5, and then he played this move, which was a bit weird. I don't really understand this move, h3. I guess it's to stop my knight jumping in, but I wasn't really threatening that at the moment anyway, and if I did just jump in, he could then just kick it straight away again. So not really understanding that move. Apparently it's perfectly normal, it's a book move, but yeah, anyway, the game continues with rook e8, which is apparently very wrong, but also a book move. As you can see, the eval bar just jumps straight up to 0.7 in his favour now. So he plays rook e1, and I play this very poor move. Wow, the light is just absolutely died. But I played this quite bad move, rook b8. And he just played quite solid, bishop e3, defending the centre, everything's absolutely rock solid. Maybe I should have just taken, maybe that was the best move beforehand instead of playing rook b8. Now this was a complete blunder on my half. I played queen c7 simply because I thought this was just quite a principled move. I'm trying to get the queen off its starting square and there's not really that many other spots it can go to. If I did play something like queen b6, he could play this and get a tempo. So it's just the only move I could see. I didn't really want to play this. Apparently that's also bad. So instead I went queen c7, and he has a nice tactic here which I completely overlooked, winning this pawn on b7. Sorry, a7. So that's what happens. He trades it all off, and then he collects that pawn with a tempo on my rook. So I have to then move the rook back, and I was already feeling a bit deflated. I've already felt like, right, I've already blundered against the Grandmaster. He's up a pawn for nothing. He's gained a tempo. He's got basically all his pieces in the game, and you know, my pieces feel a bit passive. This is stuck behind this, and you know, and like my bishop's stuck behind my knight. It doesn't feel great for me. Apparently he's at plus 1.2. So he went back, straight back to e3 with his bishop. I then went to bishop e7. This is apparently a good move, which I was quite happy about because at the time I thought it was a bit questionable. Point being is I'm just hitting his pawn on c4 and he has to play b3, and which is what he does. And apparently that's not a good move, but I think that's perfectly fine, and the eval bar does agree. Now I played this move, which apparently is a mistake, but I wanted to centralise my rook, bring my queen back and attack this pawn. That's my plan. So I didn't want to centralise, I didn't want to bring my queen back yet, because if I bring my queen back now, it cuts the circulation off between the rooks. Don't really want to do that, so I thought, well, I'll gain the tempo on his queen by moving it to the center, and then once his queen moves, then I can move my queen down, get a attack going on this king side, because I thought, well, I'm down a pawn, the only thing I can really do at this point is try and create some friction somewhere on the king side and pray maybe I can get a draw. That would be the absolute dream. So I play rook a d8 and he moves his queen to c2. This is apparently the best move, just defending this pawn doubly, I guess. So, well, it's really defended. So I then drop the queen back, which is my plan all along, so that I can get this battery, and he blunders with a4, completely giving up the pawn, and now the eval bar says that I'm actually slightly more favourable. So I take that free pawn, hoping he would take back, because that would be beautiful for me. If I had complete control over his king side, I could jump the knight in and I would be crushing him. Obviously he decided not to do that, and instead played bishop g5, which is perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The computer says that's bad, but he's just attacking this knight, which is pinned because of my rook. So I then move the rook upwards, right to d6, defending the knight at the same time, but apparently this was the best move. This is the queen g4 was apparently the best move. Can't see why personally. You know what, I'm going to turn that off because that's annoying. I'm going to turn that off. Show best move is now off, and apparently it's still there. Okay, don't know why that's there. So he decides to trade on f6, which I was very happy about. So I can obviously take with the bishop, which is obviously the principal move because this rook, you know, can be doubled quite easily. But I also thought if I took with the rook, maybe I can start something over here. So I did take with the rook, which the computer says is fine, but the bishop was better. I had another plan for this bishop though. This bishop was going to come in useful very shortly. So he played rook d1, just trying to rook at ad1. I suppose just claiming the open file now, and I played bishop to f8, a move that's not normally played in these positions where you fianchetto your dark squared bishop, because it's just sort of like, well, this is where it belongs. But my plan was to try and go over here, create some friction along this. I could either go any of these two squares and just make some pressure, something could form. The computer says I've now got a 1.2 advantage, which is like, you know, it's nothing, it's not substantial. Now right now I have quite a great move, and this is something I'd recommend doing if you're also an amateur. When you're playing your classical games and you're not sure what move to make, you have a few candidate moves in your head. I personally write them down on the back of my score sheet so that later on when I'm doing the analysis I can see if I was sort of along the right lines, and I had the right move written down but I didn't play it. The right move is this. It simply gains the tempo on, like, I thought this was a great move, apart from he could drop this back. What I missed was that I could then go here and collect one of these rooks. That's why I didn't play it. So if he goes back over here, I can then just go check and win the rook anyway. So it's a great move, it's the best move in the position, but I didn't play it, and I instead played queen to g4, which is just an unfortunate thing because now I'm back to equal. He then blunders trying to trade queens onto e2. Now this is the thing with Grandmasters and anyone that's severely higher rated than I am. I'm not going to ever trade queens with you because I want the game to go for as long as possible, and I know the second I get into an endgame he's going to slowly crush me and I'm not going to have any chance of getting any attack. So I decided, no, I'm not trading, even though the computer probably wants it. I'm not doing it. I'm just going to stay with my queen and I'm going to just play any move I can to survive as long as I can. So he plays his rook over to f3, which is apparently a blunder because I can just take it. Now there was a point here where I thought that maybe I had something going on, because I thought maybe I could play my bishop over and try and do something along these lines, but I noticed it didn't work. So my plan was something like this, and once I take here he's got this, and then he can also claim this. So I realized while calculating this it was a mistake, so I didn't play that. Instead I did trade rooks, which is apparently a great move. I don't know why, but apparently it is. So he then takes back with the bishop. Now this is a point of friction for this game really for me, because I wrote back on the back of this score sheet, move 25. He picked up the queen, then put it back after placing it on f3. He then took back with the bishop and said GMs don't have to play touch move. So what actually happened is once I played this great move, he took with the queen, blundering the game completely in one. Because I could just play the bishop over, attacking the queen defends the bishop. This is going to win material. This rook is fantastic on d1 because it controls the only open file. My rook is very passive and this bishop isn't amazing, so once he moves his queen, I can take and take, and now I've just got an exchange up for his amazing rook, so I should soundly, hopefully, be able to trade everything off and at least get a draw. But he decides that he's a Grandmaster, he doesn't have to play by those sort of touch remove rules. Now this wasn't stated at the simultaneous beforehand, so I just assumed that it was touch to move like every other type of chess game, but he instead did take back with the bishop when I traded. So once I took, he took with the bishop, and that is obviously the best move. I then played this move, h5, which is a mistake. I should have played this. I did look at this. Now the reason I've played h5 is because I realised quite quickly if I did nothing, if I played a random move, he can trap my bishop. This bishop can't go anywhere. It's all defended, so he can then play his king up and collect this bishop. That's my whole reason, is that if I play h5, he cannot play this. So that's my thought behind it. I also understand you can play this because once he comes, you can do this, and you're also fine. I didn't really see any points to this because I was always defending my bishop, but apparently this is a mistake and I'm really winning. So I made a bit of a mistake there by not going for that, but I played h5 anyway, something I could understand at least. So he then played his bishop back. This bishop has moved all over the place. So he's played bishop g2. I decided not to trade bishops yet. I want him to take me. So I played bishop c5, attacking this f2 pawn. My arrows are terrible today. And he plays his... Now this is quite obvious what he's trying to do. He's trying to reroute his knight and attack this bishop. So I knew that, and I said, well, I've got a good tempo here. I have to try and use this as best as I can. I know he's going to be shuffling his knight for the next couple moves. I need to come up with a plan. Now more and more people were dropping out of this simultaneous because they were getting defeated. So he was coming around faster and faster. It was about 5 to 10 minutes the first few moves, and then it was getting faster and faster. So I had to come up with moves precisely and fast. So I decided to move my king up simply because I could then swing my rook over to the h file if he ever did open this up, which I didn't think he would, but I thought, well, you know, it's a move at least. So he plays his knight over to c1, which is what I was expecting. And I was now really thinking, what am I going to do when he lands this knight on d3? Where's this bishop going to go? Because if I put it back to a7, he's going to play c5, and it's going to be locked up. So just to show you, if I if I say, yeah, if I make a random move and I go like this, my bishop is now absolutely dominated. Now apparently in this position, he is obviously getting crushed because this is hanging. But ignore this. That's the big threat. Is like this bishop is now completely passive. He can slowly push these pawns and crush me. So I also thought, well, maybe once he lands his knight, I can go back one. But it's the same thing. Now he gets a tempo as well. So I played my bishop over, and he had to move his queen. So he decided to block with the bishop instead. Bishop f3. I trade, which is a mistake. He takes back. I then play the correct move, queen h3, just trying to gain control, finally getting my queen into this square. He correctly plays bishop d3, and this is where I realise I don't actually have to move my bishop back at all. I have to move my bishop, but I don't have to move it back. I move it forward. Now it's going to take him even longer to try and dislodge this bishop. This is now even better for me. So I wanted to try and keep more counterplay and just keep pushing on. He decides to move his knight straight back to c1, trying to go straight to e2 on the next move. I correctly play my... I was quite proud of this. The fact that it gave me a great move is a bit generous, but I was proud that I came up with this idea. The constant rook lifts, moving the rook up, moving it to the side, and just pressuring this pawn. The computer now gives me a +4 advantage against a Grandmaster, my first ever time playing a titled player. So I play rook to e6. He then plays rook... I don't really understand this, d2. I suppose it's just over defending this. So I correctly move my rook over to f6. He moves his queen back to g2. I then go... Now this apparently is a great move, or a good move, so I was happy at least I found this. Queen g4, and he then moves his knight. I think this just over defends this pawn here, so he has the queen, the rook, and the knight defending it. I then find this fantastic move. I don't think I'd ever have normally played this, but I was sort of playing without fear against this Grandmaster. I just decided that I'm just going to just absolutely try and blow him off the board and, you know, try and crush him, even though I'm obviously going to get crushed. Now, this was apparently the much better move, bishop c3, simply because the rook runs out of spaces to go. There's no good space for the rook to go. If he does move over, you have this check here collecting the rook, and if you move back, you can just take it for free. This basically is just a great move, and if you can move it straight over as well, it's really good. Just this bishop's c3 move. I did not play that because I'm not that good at chess, and I played rook to f3 instead, simply trying to pressure everything and, you know, stop his pawn ever moving. He then starts to run with his king f1, and then I blunder the entire game with one move. It's now +3. I was at a peak there of +5 against a Grandmaster. That's something to be proud of, I suppose. I was winning against the Grandmaster for a few moves, but I got greedy. I saw this pawn was free. However, it's not free. Once I take this pawn, he can drop his knight back to e1, and I'm completely losing because he's attacking my knight. My rook, sorry. If I move my rook, I lose my queen. And I can't do anything. I can't counter attack him at all. I thought maybe I could just pin the knight. This also doesn't work because he can just take the queen instead. I'm completely lost at this point, so I decided to give up my rook with check. Best move apparently. He takes back. I keep the queen on the board. Don't want to trade it, and I try and play a perpetual. There is no perpetual. He found this move instantly. This rook g2 is the only move he can play. If he plays this, I think that I can potentially get more of a potential, that's the wrong move, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, a perpetual going, but I can't. I thought maybe if he would blunder, that would be nice as well. If he dropped that with a knight, that's quite unfortunate, isn't it? That's actually checkmate if he played the knight over. So no, he correctly played the move, rook g2, and, you know, I had to resign the game shortly after. So that's my game against the Grandmaster. I was winning very strongly and unfortunately got greedy and took a pawn that was incredibly poisoned and lost the game. Now, what I do find quite funny is that this mistake I made by grabbing this pawn gives me about a 2.8 advantage to him, whereas if he took back earlier on in the game, when he took back earlier on in the game with the queen instead of the bishop, that was even stronger advantage for me. So if I was a Grandmaster and I was also allowed to take back moves, then I would have probably won this game. But it's the unfortunate reality is I'm definitely not a Grandmaster and very, very, very unlikely to ever be. I really hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. I really hope this gives you sort of an idea of what it's like to play against the Grandmaster at a simultaneous. He was obviously not in best form because he was playing so many people at once, and this game went on for almost 5 hours, so he was obviously fatigued, and trying to remember all the positions is incredibly hard. But he played a great game and destroyed me overall. Something I do want to point out though is if you go over to game review, I actually had a higher accuracy than the Grandmaster. And if you scroll all the way down, it awards me a 2000 rating and him a 1950. So I think I'm better than him. Of course I'm not. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more like it in the future, make sure to leave a like and a comment saying so. There's this video. Goodbye.